after leading Israel for 40 years, after speaking with God face to face, after witnessing miracles unlike any other man, Moses reached the edge of the promised land. But then something shocking happened. God told him, "You may look at the land, but you will not enter it." Why would God deny his faithful servant at the very end of his journey? The answer reveals a lesson. Years earlier, God called Moses from a burning bush. The bush burned with fire, yet it was not consumed. There, God chose an ordinary shepherd for an extraordinary mission. God sent Moses back to Egypt to confront Pharaoh and demand freedom for the Israelites. What seemed impossible became the beginning of one of history's greatest rescues. After the devastating plagues, Pharaoh finally let Israel go. Thousands of families walked out of Egypt with hope, believing their long-awaited freedom had finally arrived. When Pharaoh's army chased them, God performed another miracle. The Red Sea parted, and Israel crossed safely on dry ground, while the Egyptian army was overwhelmed by the returning waters. At Mount Sinai, God gave Moses his commandments and entered into a covenant with his people. Moses became the leader, teacher, and mediator of Israel. For 40 years, Moses faithfully led the people through the wilderness. God provided manna from heaven, water from rocks, and guidance by a pillar of cloud. People often complained. They became thirsty and angry, blaming Moses for bringing them into the wilderness. Instead of answering the crowd himself, Moses turned to God. Once again, he asked the Lord for wisdom. He gave Moses a simple instruction: speak to the rock, and it will pour out water for the people. In frustration, Moses struck the rock with his staff instead of speaking to it. Water still flowed, but Moses had not followed God's instruction exactly. At that moment, something changed. Moses had acted in anger and failed to honor God before the people. He told Moses that because he had not trusted him enough to uphold his holiness before Israel, he would not lead the people into the promised land. As past, Israel came closer and closer to Canaan, but Moses knew his journey would end before he crossed the Jordan River. With a humble heart, Moses pleaded with the Lord, "Please let me cross the Jordan and see the good land beyond." After decades of faithful service, it was the deepest desire of his heart. Instead of focusing on himself, Moses turned his attention to Joshua, the man God had chosen to lead Israel into the promised land. In front of all Israel, Moses encouraged Joshua to be strong and courageous. God's mission would continue, even after Moses was gone. The people prepared to cross the Jordan River. The land they had waited for over 40 years was finally within sight. On the mountain, Moses saw the valleys, rivers, and hills that God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob many centuries earlier. Although he would never walk there, Moses saw God's promise fulfilled with his own eyes. His life's mission had not been in vain. The story reminds us that God's purposes are greater than any one person's journey. Moses had faithfully prepared the way for the next generation. The Bible tells us that Moses died there in the land of Moab. After seeing the promised land from afar, his life ended in the presence of the God he had faithfully served. Israel mourned for Moses, but the mission continued. Joshua would now lead the people forward, just as God had planned. God's work never ended with one leader. His promises continued through Joshua, as Israel moved toward the inheritance God had prepared. Moses' story teaches that faithfulness, humility, and obedience matter deeply. Even when God's answers are difficult, his purposes remain perfect. In the next part, we'll explore the lasting lessons of Moses' life and how this story points to hope beyond Mount Nebo.